very hard to operate on a general philosophy of power. They say that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. But I don't agree with that. I think you have to be corrupted by power. Mark Pellegrino. The pursuit of anime is an aim to explore philosophical topics through the medium of anime, to create discussion and to enlighten ourselves. We are by no means professionals, and the content of this podcast is pure discussion meant to stimulate and exercise our minds and hopefully yours too. So today's a special topic, and you're joined here by the usual suspects, myself, Raven, and Teddy.
Hello.
And we're here, answering the beck and call of a subscriber, longtime subscriber, Philip Johnson, 94629462, who is asking us, do you have a segment in plan to talk about power? That's a good door to use. Sorry for the caps. It just says One Punch Man. And of course, we reply, like, great idea. We will definitely discuss the implications of power in an upcoming podcast for sure. Thanks for the idea. Now, that was 2 months ago.
Yeah, sorry
Uh,
it took us so long to get to it, but yeah, we finally did it. Here we are.
Yeah, but thanks for the idea because it's an interesting topic, kind of in philosophy and anime. The concept of like too much power or just power in general, powerful beings. I know it's kind of explored in comics with characters like Superman, right? Like you saw it in the Batman versus Superman arc, where Batman's whole thing is that, well, Superman's just too powerful. He's too dangerous to just be let loose and do whatever he wants, because what's stopping him from just destroying everything one day, you know?
Y-
And I think,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you think that kind of carries over to anime, Teddy?
Oh yeah, it definitely does. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but there has been an ongoing feud between uh Marvel Comics and anime fans where they keep pitting Superman against either Goku or Saitama.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it's a big thing because they wonder like who broke their ceilings, who is the most powerful. But that's another thing. Like when you talk about the consequences of power, right? One thing that we don't always necessarily notice right away is the fact that it one of the consequences of it is fear. Fear in the
yeah,
people around them that we just have to trust that they're not going to go crazy and let loose,
yeah,
right? Because you know that if they do, there's nothing anyone can do to stop them. So that's always a point of concern, and it's even more so with it's more so with certain characters more than others. I feel like with Superman, it's a lot less likely to happen just because he's so righteous and he's all about doing the right thing and upholding justice at every turn. So I
yeah,
feel like he's on the right side uh of that matter. Like he probably wouldn't turn around and do something to hurt people around him or to cause chaos or pain or suffering. But you can't say the same about everybody that happens to have that kind of almighty power, if you will, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I definitely do see that where there's this kind of danger associated with power. I mean, there's quotes even in just like regular everyday media. Remember that song by Kanye? No one man should have all that power.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, it brings this question: like, are all powerful beings too dangerous to be kept alive? Do you kind of agree with that Batman approach to these people like Saitama, Goku? That these people are just a liability. They're a danger to society. Like, especially like
It's
you.
the fear factor, man. It's literally
Yeah,
that because they know that they can do nothing again. Like it's like this, man. If you get into an argument with somebody that you know is extremely powerful and you wouldn't be able to stop them, you fear even being in an argument with them in the first place because it's like if they get mad, what am I gonna do? I'm done. I'm finished. Right?
yeah,
That's what a lot of people think. So when they say, "Oh, this person is a threat," right, to mankind or whatever, it's more so, yeah, they're a threat because we feel like there's nothing we can do to hold them back, right? So it's that fear that really guides everything,
yeah. And the
you
thing
know.
is, I think the difference between like Superman and some of these like anime characters is that like you brought up, Superman does have like a righteous heart, right? He's on the good path. Where you see his story and you'll know this guy will never destroy the world. He loves the world. I mean, his parents, his mother lives on this planet Earth, so he lives to protect it, right? Whereas like people like Goku and Saitama, you might look at them and you'll say, well, these people are like man babies. They're children. What's to stop them from throwing a tantrum and they just sneeze and the world just erupts? It splits in half and everything gets destroyed. So that's the thing about it. It's like kind of crazy to think about one person holding the power to destroy the world. That could be too much for one person to have. And it kind of brings up the question of how much power is too much power. And I know Teddy just dropped off. I think the power got to him. But that is a question that's kind of following our society nowadays is how much power is too much power. I know that definitely applies to wealth, where a lot of people say we need to eat the rich because they have too much power, they have too much wealth in their hands, and that is coming at the detriment of other people. So I don't know what Teddy thinks. Let me get him back on. Teddy,
Yo, yo,
you
yo.
you
I'm back.
dropped off.
Yeah,
You
I
dropped
did.
off, but we're talking about how much power is too much power. Do you think there's people that like? I know nowadays it's a common discussion of the wealthy. There's people that have an excess of wealth, excess of power. How much power is too much in this sense?
Um, that's a good question. And I think it comes down to how you measure it. And I guess the greatest measure of it is how many lives can you affect with your position? Depending on the answer to that question, we might be able to determine if somebody has too much power or not. If you're able to influence the lives of, because mind you, it takes so many different forms, right? Let's say you're somebody who's really good with words. You can tell people to, like, you can command people without making it seem like that's what you're doing, right? There's some people they're really good with their words. They're really good in manipulating people. That's a kind of power. And if it's proven that you're able to do that on a consistent basis with all kinds of people from different walks of life across the board, that's extremely dangerous.
Yeah,
I would say that is too much power because who can tell you, like, who could reel you in? Because think about it. If somebody comes to you and just a hypothetical scenario, let's say you're the one who has that ability, right? And I'm told, like, hey, you need to be careful of this guy Raven because he can really convince you to do anything, right? Like he can make you do his bidding anytime he wishes because he has a silver tongue. Just the way he speaks, he can move you in ways that you didn't think you could be moved. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I can talk some good stuff too. So let me at him. Let me go. And then I try to go up against you and then you win. It's like at that point, what, like, how do you deal with that?
you can't. Like it's just that's the thing. When there's too much power, you there's certain things you just can't deal with. It's like imagine if the whole hero society one day had to stop a rogue Saitama. You could try to reason with him, but at the end of the day, you just don't have the power to defeat him. Think about it this way, Teddy. Think about the world government in One Piece, right?
Hmm.
I think anybody who reads the story of One Piece would say these people have way too much power.
Yeah.
They're able to destroy islands instantly, and that's too much. Now, in order to beat the world government, we all know that Luffy's going to have to get just as powerful, if not more powerful, to be able to destroy them and basically kind of liberate the world from their clutches, right?
Hmm.
But at what cost? Wouldn't Luffy then be too powerful?
Yeah, and then you have to trust that he's not going to abuse his power, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm like, listen, you just either trust that that person is not going to go crazy with it, or you come up with a balance
Yeah.
for it. Because even going with the example you gave from One Piece, you know that they have the ancient weapons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And uh, those ancient weapons, they are devastating. So what they did, they decided, you know what, we need to have a countermeasure in case somebody nefarious or with ill intentions gets a hold of these weapons, starts using them. So they have countermeasures for those weapons. Like I believe, was it Pluton, the one that Frankie had the blueprints to?
Yeah. Pluton.
Yeah. So there are blueprints for another weapon to create it to balance against Pluton in case somebody gets a hold of it and starts using it. So it I feel like that's the only real measure you can take, specifically when it comes to dealing with the concern that they're gonna go crazy with it. So that's one thing. But one another aspect of power that I've always been fascinated with was um
Mm-hmm.
you know how people say money changes people,
Yeah.
but then over time, I don't know how you feel about this, but I've come to realize that money doesn't necessarily change people. It just makes them more of what they really are,
Yeah.
or it enables them to show their true colors. I see power the same way. I feel like if you become powerful in one way or another, whether it be physically, financially, mentally, skill wise, whatever have you, I feel like it makes you into more of what you are.
Yeah.
Do
Of
you do
course.
you do you do you kind of see that like
Yeah, I agree completely. There's even a quote by Abraham Lincoln that says, like, nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it just goes straight into it. And there's even like studies that have been done on this. So there's this study by a professor. He's also a doctor. So Professor Gerben van Cleef. This is in the University of Amsterdam. They were conducting a study on powerful people, and they found that powerful people usually hold this irrational belief that they are better role models than others. And this is just one of the examples that they found that accepted the fact that the possession of power almost always distorts the powerful person's perception of reality. I'm sure you've heard of like famous people who are out of touch. Remember kind of all the stuff the famous people were saying during the pandemic? Remember like Gal Gadot, Ariana Grande, they were making videos of like, yeah, guys, don't worry about the pandemic. Like all you had to do to be safe is like make TikTok videos singing and clapping your hands and you'll be okay, while they're in their mansions far away from the hearts of the cities which were affected, and the close quarters of being next to people maskless and stuff like that trying to get to your job. They were completely away from that, so they were out of touch. They were just speaking from a place of ignorance, and power can kind of deepen that trench of ignorance for the powerful. And the fact that people also who interact with powerful people are usually afraid to contradict or correct them. And this kind of only intensifies that issue. So, as this kind of pathology progresses, powerful people may actively seek to get rid of subordinates who are objective, and they may choose instead to surround themselves with meek and docile sycophants, basically yes men,
Yes, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
So they're in that echo chamber that just reverberates positive feedback regardless of if it's deserved or not.
exactly. So This is and if it's left unchecked, then it just keeps growing. This kind of ego keeps growing,
Mm.
and it even like this kind of ties into everything, like almost every aspect of society. Because even democracy, right? Think to democracy. Democracies are basically based on this premise that, or this proposition that power is very dangerous, right?
Mhm.
And that it's really important for us as a society not to let any one person, any one group, any one, I guess, branch of government, whether it be legislative, judiciary, nobody should have too much power for a long time. That's why we have presidents for 4 years and what is it, 8 years max, right? Two
Mhm.
terms. So even our society is built around this idea that no one should have too much power and no one should have power for too long of a time.
Well, that's only in places where they've developed that system like around that understanding.
Yeah,
Because there are
democracy.
plenty of countries like in Africa where they don't do that. You have the same guy is in power for decades, and then that guy's son takes over when he dies. And so it's like that nepotism. It's the same family that's in power for generations, right?
Yeah,
So there are places where they hold they abuse their power and they completely shut down any opposition whatsoever. So that's an unfortunate um
well, can I
an
ask you,
unfortunate
Teddy,
reality. Mhm.
can I ask you, do you think that kings should exist? So for you, should they exist?
Well, see, it depends on what the king is like,
Yeah,
because not all kings are created equal. There are kings who their kingdom thrived under their rule to the point that the people who served them wished for them to reign over them eternally. Like,
yeah,
our lives are so much better because you're the king. Please stay in power forever if possible. Like, if we could have the immortal surgery or whatever from One Piece and use that on this guy, that would be amazing because life is so much better as a result of that person being in power. So it's not the notion of kingship and kingdoms that's the problem. Is the people that are appointed as kings that are
yeah,
the issue. I mean, we have the same thing with presidents nowadays. Not
yeah,
all presidents are created equal. There's some that they really take their job seriously, and then there are those who use that as a means to make their lives more comfortable, more plush, while their people suffer daily. So it's a balancing act. What I think is scary is when somebody gets a hold of power and they believe that their goals and aspirations are correct
yeah,
or just. I'm not saying that they're morally good. No, is they believe that they're in the right, that they're correct in their stance, right? For example, and I love taking this example because I feel like, especially in anime, that's the best instance of almighty power that you cannot stop unless you know how it works, and that's the Death Note. There is literally nothing you can do to stop it unless you are aware of it, or you know about it, or you're L,
mm-hmm,
which is not many people, right?
yeah,
Like having those kinds of deductive skills to come to those conclusions. Not everybody can do that. So with our buddy Light Yagami, right? He believed he was correct. And with the kind of strong convictions he has, you saw what he did with the power he was given. And that to me is the scariest, because those are the people who are impossible to, like, to have a conversation with or to rationalize with, because in their minds they're thinking, this power, I deserve this, and nobody should stop me. And if you try to stop me, then you're wrong. And then you need to go, right? And it goes to what you were saying earlier, that sometimes that power gets to your head and turns you into a delusional individual
Yeah. And
because you're yeah. Mhm.
you know what, Eddie? Like sometimes we could get caught up, right? Like we see light, right? And we look at him, and we might look at him through the lens of L, right? And we might say like, hey, this guy needs to be taken out because he's too dangerous to be kept alive. He's too powerful, yeah.
Mhm.
But look at it through a different lens, right? For a moment. Remember in Hunter x Hunter
Yeah.
when Meruem is basically proposing to Netero, look, I will be the king of the world. I'm strong enough to do it. Um, and I've kind of changed my ways. I'm not going to mindlessly, like, murder you all. I'm going to give you all a good, segregated life. There will be peace in the world. Just let me be king. Just let's make a truce right here, and we'll work things out. He extended his hand to Meruem uh, to to create basically his world of peace or his world with him as a king. And Netero himself kind of said, no, you just have too much power and you need to be eliminated. It doesn't matter if you're benevolent all of a sudden. You need to die. You need to go. And Merun did perish, right? But what happened after that? After the arc, you get to kind of see more of the government. We get to see more of a focus on that when there's an election going on, right?
Yeah.
And now we start seeing a different kind of power. We start seeing a lot of corruption in the government, and we see new threats to society. So there's this kind of concept that even though you erase one great powerful evil, it doesn't mean that all power won't exist basically anymore. It doesn't mean that power will just go away, that evil will just go away. And that's kind of one of the kind of misguided viewpoints I see on this issue, where people just say, well, if there's a super all powerful dude like Saitama or Superman walking around, we just need to get rid of him because he's too dangerous. Okay, you get rid of him. There's still nukes flying around in Russia, the USA, and China,
Hmm.
and it's just as dangerous. Well, I don't know how you feel about that, Teddy.
No, it's true. It's true. And that's why balance is so important. That's why you look at the government. It's divided in different how do you call those things? Uh
Different branches.
yes. Oh gosh. Sometimes, the words they escape me. But yes,
Yeah, yeah,
different branches. You have the legislative branch, you have the judiciary and all that. So basically, all that to say, you have to break it up. You can't have one like all that power concentrated in just one person, because at that point you just have to hope that they have a good head on their shoulders to make the right decisions. And we all know that just the way human nature is, it's damn near impossible for that to happen.
yeah,
You know, it's like this, man. I've had this conversation in the past with people because I was curious, and it's something that's kind of uncomfortable to think about a little bit, but this is what we do here. We do uncomfortable. We delve deep. So notice how anybody who's achieved great fame and glory in human history, have you noticed how at one point or another they were associated with some kind of extreme vice, um or maybe like criminal activity, things of that nature?
yeah. They were associated with evil, like power equals evil,
Yeah.
basically.
Hmm. So I have a theory, and that theory goes something like this: the human psyche isn't set up to handle certain amount of attention or stimuli or power, and everybody has a threshold, and whenever you exceed that threshold, something's got to give. You need to have an outlet to deal with that excess that you're being exposed to. And
Yeah.
it's kind of weird. It's a weird thing to think about, but I've just gone through all the great people in human history and all the struggles that they face. Like you go as far back as, I don't know, like Gandhi, right? Everybody remembers the humanitarian, benevolent Gandhi, but people also forget that he wasn't always like that. Like he used to partake in quite a good amount of debauchery back in the day,
Oh
right?
shit.
And that was his balancing kind of act for him. Was he went from that to seeing the consequences of that way. He completely did a full 180 in the opposite direction. So it was it just studying human history like that has made me realize this may be a thing. I feel like, and nobody is immune to it. Like, let's say tomorrow um you're put in a position of power. I'm not just speaking like there's a little bit of power. I'm talking you're changing lives kind of power. I can see how that would get to somebody's head. I can
Yeah,
really
for
see it
sure.
because, like, it's something that if you've never experienced it, you can't make sense of it. But once you do, it's like, ooh, that it's like this. You know how people always they they uh they look poorly on men who happen to have a lot of lady friends, right? Let's put it that way. And say they get around a lot. And some men will say, "Oh wow, yeah, like you can't even build a strong relationship with one woman," and the woman will be like, "Oh wow, like you're just a dog out here messing around with multiple women." But if you think about it, just imagine this for a second, right? Imagine that you are a chick magnet. Just your existence exudes pheromones that attracts women to you, and you don't do anything. Like you're not going after it. No, they just you're there. You exist, and these women just smell. They smell Raven like, oh my gosh, what is this manly musk coming from? I can't resist, and they just gravitate to you like that. What are you supposed to do? I mean, sure, you can do the right thing, be the good guy, especially if you're in a relationship. Let me not start if you're not, because if you're not, you don't have nothing to lose, right? But if you are, let's say you keep turning them away. Listen, at some point, the dam is going to crack and the floodgates are going to open. And I know this is a very vivid and graphic representation, but it's real.
Yeah,
I
and that's
feel
the
like
thing. Like,
you can only
and that's
handle so much.
that's the thing. Like, think about it this way. Like, you've changed, like moving from job to job, right?
Mhm,
You've changed getting into new relationships. You changed moving from middle school to high school, from high school to college. You've changed even with the seasons, even with as the years pass and you grow older, right? So if all of these factors change you, then why would it be that power wouldn't change you? You know,
exactly. Which
power is
even
such a
has more power. Like,
yeah,
funny enough.
it's an even bigger factor than like time, a
Yeah.
relationship, a job. Like power would be one of the ultimate factors. It's like unlimited wealth, unlimited power. Those things would change you drastically, and it would accelerate your development as a person, whether it be for good or for bad. And that's just that's just kind of a thing. Like, and there's even quotes like, obviously, with great power comes great responsibility. They say things like that, and there's a personal consequence to power as well, that you can lose yourself or you can grow out of touch with who you used to be or who you think you are, who you'd like to be.
Mhm.
Um, these are all things that you have to consider when you're talking about power. And even in like a societal sense, like there's even a quote by Simon Wiesenthal where he says, "What connects 2,000 years of genocide? Too much power in too few hands." So there's this idea of like power is only good when it's distributed evenly, um, among people. There's a lot of people that think that way, right? Of course, we've spoken to a lot of people, Teddy, who believe that like people who pass a certain threshold of wealth are just inherently immoral. They're inherently bad people. Even if they're nice guys, even if they're kind to others, like just the act of them having so much wealth, so much power, it makes them inherently bad. Of course, we have our own thoughts on that, but this is definitely a way that a lot of people think about things. And even a study shows that 54% of Americans, that's a majority, say that the federal government has too much power. Um, and this is a study that's been held since 2017 up until now, and the statistic hasn't changed much. So this is kind of like a prevalent viewpoint on power in society, on power within people, within culture, within kind of even social media can kind of give you an inflated sense of power where you get all of these likes, you get all these follows, and a lot of attention is brought your way, and so that gives you kind of the illusion of power. If all eyes are on me, then you know I'm the center of the show. I'm the center of attention. I'm the one who's running everything.
Yeah, yeah, no, pretty much. And that's what we're talking about earlier is the more power you have, the more self-importance you well, the more importance you give to yourself, right? And you
Yeah,
think, I'm one of the few, one of the chosen ones. I'm an exceptional being. I'm an exceptional existence. And it can really mess with your psyche. And this is the thing. Remember how I said I feel like with power, it's similar to money, where having it or having more of it just makes you more of who you are. Like, because you look at even fictional stories, like anime in general. You have some people when they get when they achieve more power, it doesn't make them it doesn't make them go crazy. It doesn't make them go insane with uh ridiculous amounts of self-importance. Look at somebody like Ichigo, right? He keeps gaining more and more power every arc. All that does, though, is make him more of a protector,
yeah,
because that's who he is already. And with the power he's given, now he has the tools he needs to be more of who he already is.
yeah,
You look at Goku. He's a meathead. He just loves to fight. So the more powerful he gets, the more he seeks even the higher thrills, like higher challenges every time, right? So getting more power just makes him more of who he already is. You look at a guy
yeah,
like Saitama, right? Now, Saitama is interesting because some might say, "Oh, he just became bored um, because of how powerful he got." But I ask you this: what did he look like when we first get introduced to him before he goes on that journey to become a hero?
well, he has hair.
That is a big difference. He does have hair,
And you
right?
know what? Now that he has the power, he feels empty because he doesn't have any like outlet to kind of um to kind of express that ability, right? And I
But you
think
know what?
that's yeah,
I think he was already empty before.
yeah,
And achieving that made him even more empty and feel more lonely, because when we get introduced to him, He wants to be a salaryman. He's on his way to a job interview, or his way back from a job interview. He has no life in his eyes because he just glides through life. Mind you, I don't know if you know this about Japan, but being a salaryman is one of the most boring existences you can ever have,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
Overtime, minimum wage, you
Mhm.
know?
It does you don't get anywhere. So that's why I argue that he was already like that. He already had that boredom aspect to his life already. And becoming that powerful and seeking that thrill, he even he leaned into that even more because he's like, oh my goodness, now I really don't have anything to look forward to because the journey was the thrill. When he was chasing something, that's what you know brought him joy. And now that he obtained it, it's like, oh, there's nothing else. What what
Yeah.
what am I gonna do, right? So even in his case, gaining more power made him more of what he already was or what he was already dealing with. So I feel like it's a trend. So anytime you see somebody that becomes corrupted from having power, it's like, no, the seed of corruption was already in them. All power did was make it grow, you
Yeah.
know?
Power is not some type of problem solver. It's not gonna make all your problems go away. And I think one of the like kind of ways that power can that you can deal with power, right? That you can, because there's always that fear. Now we've been talking about like once you get powerful, it's very easy to grow out of touch with who you were, with who you once were, with who you want to be. One of the ways like Ichigo, Saitama, Goku, they're not really focused on the power, right? Because they already for the most part have the power. Now the way that they kind of kept the ego in check and kept themselves kind of still the same at the core is because, well, one, of course, they held very, very strong values, but also two, they didn't completely focus on the power, right? So with Ichigo, his
Hmm.
focus was always on protecting people. It wasn't on just gaining more power. I just need more power just for the sake of having power. He was always focused on protecting people. If he could protect people with having no power, he would. And he tried to do this in the Fullbright arc. So this is literally a fact in the story. If he could protect people with having no power, he would. Goku, he is not focused on power. He does want power because he wants to seek more challenges, which is his ultimate kind of focus.
That's
And
right.
Saitama, at this point, he's focusing on trying to find somebody who can actually match him and give him some type of test because he's pushed himself past the limit and he's realized that at the pinnacle there's nothing for him, you know. So he's searching for that something, and so he's not focused on the power either. But the people who have fallen from grace, they're the ones who have kind of, even for just a moment, gotten two in their heads, and for the old saying goes, mad with power.
Yeah, yeah, because I feel like there's a difference between power being an end in itself versus being a means to an end. So other people just described for them it was a means to an end, right? They had a goal that had nothing to do with power itself, but power was a needed ingredient for them to achieve their goal. So
Yeah.
that's why they sought after it. But then you have people that just want it, right? The power itself is the end goal, and that's why it can corrupt you because you're not attaching a specific purpose to it. You're just saying, I just want to be almighty. Right? I just want to be able to uh either rule over people or whatever have you, and or be the strongest, be the fastest. And but sometimes, like, depending on again, right, depending on the purpose, why you're doing it for, not why, what you're doing it for, then it can it can change the nature of it. But I'm gonna be honest though. I feel like I would love, even just for a little bit, I would love to have to be powerful, or at least feel powerful.
What kind of power are you talking about?
Any
You
kind, the
talking about
kind that
panty
can
note?
see now. why would you do that? Why would you take something so wholesome and turn it into something so devious?
Hey, man.
I was not thinking of power like that, right?
Yeah,
And for those
okay.
who don't know, go read Penny Note. But for those who know, you know
Those
what
who
time
don't
it is.
know, those who know.
Exactly. Yeah, like that meme, exactly.
Yeah,
Um, no, but honestly, even a power like that, I wouldn't be against it. Just to see if I could be responsible with it. Because I feel like it's easy to judge when you haven't been put in that situation where you can almost do whatever, or you have some kind of great influence, but you have to be responsible with it. Like I can't remember a time that I've been in a position like that where
yeah,
I just felt. Remember when we had the conversation about parasocial relationships?
yeah,
I feel like if you have that with people, that is one way you can be in a position of power, because you're able to command whoever you have that um, whoever has that the power over the other person. They
yeah,
can make them do whatever they wish because they're infatuated with that person. They're thinking, oh, you are my god on this earth, and I shall do as you ask of me without question, right? So just try to imagine having that kind of power, just being able to command it, people, have them at your beck and call. Say, hey, you go fetch me this. You, there's this person. I need them to understand that they've wronged me. All right. And I want you to handle that for me. And then go ahead and handle that for you. Mm. Just thinking about it makes me feel some type of way. Maybe I really shouldn't have that kind of power now that I think about it. I might not be responsible with it. Because just imagining it right, I'm like, ooh, I could see myself abusing it.
yeah. And mankind has a cycle of kind of like rising up to power, gaining that kind of ultimate power, abusing it, destroying everything, and
Mm-hmm.
then starting from the ashes again. How many civilizations have like risen and fallen? And it's just it doesn't seem to stop. And at this
Yeah.
point, we have nuclear weapons on our hands, so it's kind of crazy. I don't know if you agree with this, Teddy, but I found this quote. I was reading this book. I think it was the fourth turning. It was talking about the cycles of history, right? And it said that hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. So that's from
Oh yeah, I
D.
agree
Michael Hop.
100%. Yeah.
You agree with that? You agree
It's true.
that's a cycle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the problem with weak men is they don't understand it, they don't appreciate hard work. So then they're not able to replicate what strong men had to do because they're not built like that. And that's why it's so very important that strong men pass on their um, work ethic and standards and values down to the next generation, because if they don't, then that's how you create weak men. And then those weak men, they don't have any understanding of how to be, like, how to work hard and to make, because easy times don't come about just willy-nilly. You have to work hard to create easy times, you know? And people who don't understand that, they'll just try to take advantage of those easy times and think, oh yeah, it's always going to be like this. I don't need to put in hard work to make it happen. No, you do. And the sooner you understand that, the better off you'll be. And that's where you run into um that roadblock, because some people don't understand that. So yes, I agree with that, with the this cycle. I think it's true. I think it's a reality of our times.
Yeah, I was thinking it too because I was thinking of it like in terms of seasons too. Like think about it this way. If you have a good spring, right, in your country, the
Mm-hmm.
good spring is going to bring fruit. It's going to bear good fruit in the summer. And good fruit in the summer means the population is going to thrive, it's going to boom. And when the population thrives, that brings more competition because there's more people, more strong-willed people. Um, and this competition will bring chaos because winter is basically just around the corner. And so that's when you're going to see that basically everything that was flourishing now dies. And then the cycle continues into the new year. The spring happens again, and then the civilization that is withering from all the war now flourishes again because all the fruit is being born, and then that creates a bigger population, and then the bigger population creates more strife, and then the more strife destroys it all, and then it's basically a never-ending cycle. And there's this big misconception that people keep thinking that we can somehow avoid this cycle and just stay perpetually in this kind of summer of plenty where we're just always going to have everything. We're always going to be stuck in that season of bearing fruit. But there has to be those seasons of scarcity. There has to be those seasons of weakness in order for us to have the seasons of strength. I don't know if you kind of see that
Just like I
too.
said before, it's a balance, baby. It's a balance.
Yeah,
Everything in balance. You can't just keep having abundance. You have to take away somewhere to get, to put back in again later on. It's like they say that no, like you can't create matter, right? Like it's a never ending cycle. Like we go through different phases, different forms of things, but energy, matter, all that stuff, it already exists, and we're just rotating it. We're not adding to matter. We're not taking away from it. We're just you know going through different phases. And I think it's like that. Like with this too is it's a cycle. It's a cycle, and it's also part of the human experience. What I mean by that is this: sometimes at work, when I feel like I've mastered something, where I know how to do my job really well, like I'm very comfortable and confident, and I have some kind of mastery over what I do. Do you know what happens? And I
well,
promise you, I don't even do it on purpose. I will sabotage myself. I will make a mistake over a very, like, otherwise very simple task. I'll mess up and I just wouldn't be able to help myself. Sometimes I'm doing it right. It's like, do you remember you watched the movie Get Out?
yeah,
Okay, so you're familiar with the sunken place.
yeah,
Okay, so it's like that. So I'm in the sunken place watching myself mess up, and I just can't stop myself. I can't help it. And I know it's wrong. And I know it's just only going to end up causing me to either redo what I'm doing or work around it, find a way to, you know, fix it. But I can't help myself. In the moment, I just keep doing it. And then after the fact, I'm like, oh, why did I do this? I knew better than to do this, but I couldn't help myself because the task was so boringly easy. I had to do something to give myself a challenge. It's so stupid. I don't know if that ever happens to you, but it happens to me sometimes where I'm just like, I know how to do this too well. So now I need to mess up so that I challenge myself now to fix the issue that I created in the first place that I could have avoided
yeah,
because I knew better. So
yeah.
I, I,
There's
I I think that's just how it is.
yeah. It seems like the more we talk about it, there's this kind of concept that like power precedes boredom, or like kind of boredom follows and latches on to power. Like when you're at the top and there's nobody else with you, it's kind of a lonesome, solitary, and very dull place to be, and nobody wants to be there. Um, and there's also this kind of idea that power and everything is cyclical, and it's kind of almost a necessary evil in order for societies to thrive, flourish, die, and get back up again. Like a
Oh,
phoenix.
absolutely. Think about it, right? Even in the boxing world, for example, I could imagine how a boxer would be so bored winning all of their fights that they decide to not necessarily throw a fight, but lose a fight that they would otherwise win, just so they could get that hunger and that drive again. To be like, you know what, I'm gonna get you now. I shouldn't have lost this, but I was. Can you imagine? You're a boxer, right? And after your match, you lose to an opponent that you by all metrics you should have beaten, right? And you get interviewed about it. It's like, so Raven, you took a lot of punch today, punches that you usually evade, and you just didn't seem to have that pep in your, like that next step. Every time you didn't step into your punches, it seemed like you were on a back burner every time, and you just kept getting pummeled, and then you ended up getting a black eye and losing the fight embarrassingly. What do you have to say to that? And imagine, right? Your reporter trying to rally you up and everything, and all you have to say to that is, because I was bored. Just imagine that for a minute. I feel like a lot of boxers who have very um impressive records feel that way at times when they've gone so many fights and no losses or barely a challenge, where they will damn near throw a fight. And then you ask them about it, they know they can't say because I was bored, because it would be kind of insulting. Maybe some people might think it's insulting to the sport, to the opponent. Just like, honestly, I needed something to give me the drive to go for it again because I was bored. I was too strong. I was too powerful. Like people just they don't move me anymore. I don't feel anything when I fight these people. So
Yeah,
I just, I needed that loss to bring me back in. So
yeah, and
that
you'll find that very seldom does the kind of the taintless, the spotless champion will be heralded higher than the rugged one. The one who's been through wars. I mean, there's only 15 boxers, world champions ever that have retired undefeated, and I guarantee you, they're not your top 15 boxers of all time. Now, why is that? It's because the best of the best
mm,
boxers are the ones who are like they went through the trial of fire. They went through the rugged, horrible process. They faced their horrible losses, and they faced the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and that's kind of what we have to face too. And sometimes too much power is good to overload us and to kind of show us and overwhelm us and basically show us that what we have right now and what we're in a sense being let to handle right now is enough for us in a sense.
oh
I kind
yeah.
of want to, yeah,
Do you think that it's possible to ever achieve a state of inner peace where you don't have to get in your own way like that to feel a thrill again, where you're just comfortable and confident in your power? Because I think of somebody like Satoru Gojo from JJK,
yeah,
and people listen, in the story, people are so scared of him that they create barriers with a condition that this barrier has for sole purpose to keep this man Satoru Gojo out. And in exchange for that, it just lets everybody else in because it's just focused on this one man. It's like, only him. He's just too much. We can't deal with him. We just need to keep him out. And even then, they're still not able to keep him out. But because he's just that guy. But I feel like when I try to imagine somebody who's just cool, calm, composed, and confident and comfortable in their power, well, I think of two people. I think of him, Satoru Gojo, and I think of Gilgamesh from the Fate series,
Yeah,
where they just I don't know if it's they've gone through enough trials and tribulations where they've achieved this now and they're like, okay, I'm good. This is it. This is my natural state now. Or if it's something in their psyche where they were always like that, and um so achieving all that power just made them more of that kind of, kind of like what's his face? Where they said Ichigo, his natural state is always to be cloaked in power. I think that's something that they said about him one time.
yeah, yeah,
And yeah, and I feel like I look at these characters like Gilgamesh, like Gojo, like Beerus. Oh God, Beerus and Whis,
yeah,
from Dragon Ball Super. Like Whis, he's almost a troll with how powerful he is. Like he goes out of his way never to flex his power because he's that strong. He's like, no, listen, I don't want to do you dirty like this because I could really just humiliate you right now, but I don't want to do that. Like Mihawk and Zoro. It's like I'm gonna fight you with this toothpick because I'm not a barbarian. I'm not gonna come out here and just butcher you because I'm nice. I understand how much more powerful than you I am. you know. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know
yeah,
if it's possible for the human psyche to achieve that, where you're in a place where you're responsible with your power and you're comfortable in your power. I don't know if it's
yeah.
possible.
I don't know if it's possible for the human psyche to achieve that, but I definitely know that the human psyche doesn't like it because that's why all the people that you just mentioned for the most part they're all villains. That's why they make good villains. They make good adversaries because we look at them and we associate them with bad. Now take that to like protagonist, right? Look at Erza from Fairy Tail. She's basically that, but instead of being a bad guy, she's a good guy. And any possible obstacle that she's put in front of, she just absolutely obliterates. She's blind. Oh well, she can see still because she's Erza. All her senses are gone. She can't smell, touch, taste. She can't nothing. Oh well, she still finds a way to find their opponent and absolutely obliterate them because she's Erza. All the bones
Because
in her
she's
body.
Urza, it gotta be one of the phrases I hate the most in anime now. Like, no,
so
that's so
we
cheap.
so that's the thing. We just don't like it. It's in our bodies. We just see that and we cringe, and there's a reason for that. We don't want to see that much. We know that much power. It's literal BS. It's literal BS. It's just unfathomable. It's
It's like it
ridiculous.
actually doesn't make any sense right now. Like, what are we doing right now?
Yeah, and we hate it. So I mean, there's just a good example of that. But I think, man, I think we hit a lot of just a lot with this subject that I didn't even think we were gonna hit. I think it's a good time to kind of give our closing thoughts, and unless you had something else, Teddy, kind of to
No,
close us
man,
out.
I think we did the rounds. As usual, I always have kind of a set idea of how much we can expand on the topic, but then I get proven wrong every time. So, I think we've explored this topic pretty well. Shout out to the our subscriber
Philip
for
Johnson.
what's his name?
Philip Johnson.
Philip Johnson. That is such a proper name.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Yeah.
Hey, and
Yeah, shout
thanks
out
for
to you,
sticking
Phil.
by us. I checked. They're still subscribed to us. I saw. We've been making the rounds. Slowly growing little by little. And Philip has been there from the beginning. I saw he was one of our first subscribers. So thanks for being one of our first subscribers and for also sticking around until now.
That's true.
We're a few months into our journey, man.
Yeah, only a couple months.
Yeah,
It's nice to see that we're developing a loyal fan base, and sure enough, we'll take this little niche area of YouTube by storm, thankfully. But honestly, even if we don't, as long as we can get one person to think a little bit harder about any of these topics that we talk about, hey, that's a W. That's a win in my book.
yeah, man. But yeah, with that, let us know what you guys thought, especially you, Philip. Let us know what you thought in the comments below, because This video's for you, basically, man. So
Yeah, it's for you. That's for real. That's for you. Yeah, but we keep our word. We keep our word. We say we're gonna do it, and
yeah,
we did it.
and it was fun. It was definitely a fun topic to go into. I love talking about One Punch Man, Saitama, and all these other people, and the philosophy of power is pretty interesting to get into. So, with that, I guess we are out, and we will catch you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.